Battletoads. Everyone should know this game, or at least you should. I mean, it's one of the most well-known games for being difficult, but is it really difficult? Now, I'm not going to say Battletoads is easy, especially not your first time going through it without any knowledge about it. But for the most part, this game is just deceptively hard.
Of course, that's after playing it several times and figuring out easier ways to beat the game, which there are, minus a few levels. I did make a guide on my Let's Play channel that you can check out, although I do have some updates for it that I want to do for it.
Now, I'm not reviewing the game per se, but if you've already seen the title, this is a top 11 because I wanted to make one.
This is my top 11 of which levels I think are the easiest and hardest. I'll also make note of which levels are my favorites and which ones I find boring or bad. Number 11. Ragnarok Canyon and Wookiee Hole. I'm picking two levels for this, mainly because both these levels are easy to beat and in no way you should really die, and if you do, you should just restart because you're gonna need that extra life. The levels in Ragnarok and Chewbacca's Wookiee Hole. No, seriously, it's called the Wookiee Hole. I don't know why, but we have to rappel down through it. They are the easiest levels because everyone can beat it before they end up at the turbo tunnels where most people just give up and quit. As for my likes and dislikes, I find that both of these levels are really uninteresting, varied, but uninteresting. The first level you do your standard beat 'em up, fight a boss at the end. The second one you slowly descend to the bottom while killing everything in your way. I just don't like either levels, and the only good thing is level 1 has a warp to level 3 if you kill the pigs quickly enough and jump towards it. In level 2 you can juggle birds for 1-up, which helped immensely for me during my first run through of the game. So I recommend going through level 2 to stock up on lives because you'll need it. But like being in Chewbacca's ass, both of these levels reek of boring. Number 10. Turbo Tunnels. The final resting place for most gamers where their game just stops right here and they never touch the game again. Starting with some small beat 'em up parts and then going right to the turbo bikes. It really isn't that hard, it's just most people don't know how to play it, and that's the problem. It's actually one of my favorite levels in the game, minus this one point where you have to make 5 jumps and there's no indication to do so except this exclamation mark, which I'm just like, exclamation? What does that mean? Oh, jump, well that was obvious. Even with that final section with dodging all the incoming walls isn't hard either, in fact that part is my favorite. Honestly, if you think this is hard, you're in a lot of trouble because it's turbo time. Number 9. Karnav's Lair. Karnav's Lair is probably my most despised level in the game. It's not hard, but it's not a simple stroll either. See, I don't think the parts in this level is hard, it's just really slow and it gets to you. So it's almost like a battle to stay awake. Now, of course, first timers won't have this problem, but you'll see what I mean if you continuously die and have to restart at the start of each part. There is a warp here, but I never use it because I prefer doing full runs even if the levels suck. Do I think it's hard for newcomers? Nah, I don't think so. Just pay attention and learn the level and you'll be okay. Just whatever you do, get out of Karnav's Lair. It's worse than Wookiee Hole. Number 8. Surf City. I was debating which level is harder for this spot, either Karnav's Lair or Surf City, but I think Surf City is more difficult, mainly for the last section where you have random mines spawning and coming at you. And they are random, they are never the same every time you start the game, so sometimes you can actually get sandwiched into a position where you have no choice but to get blown up. Karnav's Lair is the same every time you play it, which is why it's boring and not all that difficult in my opinion. But Surf City as a whole isn't that difficult on the first half if you use the tricks I found out to beating it easily. You do fight Big Blag, who isn't hard to beat with or without the stick, but once again, only if you know how to. I find the level pretty fun except if you're playing the PAL version, which is the European version that is slightly different, and the mines actually disappear because their CPU can't handle all the graphics and you can't see them till the last second. At least Karnav's Lair is consistent if slow, but to move on, surf's up. Number 7. Arctic Caverns. Originally, I put this level as harder than Volkmeyer's Inferno. Crazy, I know, but after giving it some thought, this one is easier than that. With ice physics, lots of deadly spikes, and snowmen, Arctic Cavern can give you the cold feet when you arrive here, but it's not too terrible unless you're speedrunning it like JC583.
Why does this suck?
This level can be a pain if you're impatient, and once again, not knowing how to play it. I do like the level, but more for the music if anything. The Genesis version of this music is better than the NES in my opinion. just has that right tune to it, and it's a pretty cool tune at that. So stay frosty. Number 6. Volkmeyer's Inferno. This level seems easy at first, and it kind of is with some small beat-em-up segments. Sure, the logs and bullet rats might give you some hard times, but when you get to the second half of it, then holy hell, you're in deeper hell than the background is. Riding on jets with electric fences flying at you without any indication of where they're going to appear at, randomly spawning fireballs and missiles you have to avoid, and even more fences with no indications coming at you. Quite a lot of trial and error gameplay for first timers getting here, making it rather unfair. The only part in this level that is even remotely fair is the last section with fences coming at the speed of sound, but giving you some indication at least. The last fence will probably get most players who don't know how to avoid it. What do I think of the level? I enjoy it, but it's not my favorite like most people, but I like it. But to others, it just might be their Inferno. Number 5. Terror Tubes. I think I can safely say that this level wants you dead. You've got robots who will explode and kill you on contact, rubber duckies that will go Donald Duck on you and kill you, cogs that will crush you if you can't outrace or outswim them, enemies that only need to knock you in the spikes to kill you. Yeah, this level will definitely get you killed, especially the second swimming cog race if you don't know how to swim. Oh yeah, swimming physics. It's not terrible and it takes a little bit of getting used to, but until then, get busy swimming or get busy dying. I like the music here better than in Surf City and the first half of this level, but the second half when you go swimming, I dread every time I play it. Even though I've found a way to beat the second swimming race, I still don't like having to go through it with enemies potentially knocking you in the spikes. It really is a tube of terror. Number 4! Intruder Excluder. One thing I have to say is the Genesis version of this track is awesome and much better than the NES. Except for the level. Aside from that, this level is the premonition to the last level as you have to vertically make your way up to the top to fight the boss. I say this level is hard because unlike the other levels where if you screw up you can attempt to try again, but in Intruder Excluder, if you miss a jump, you can fall right down to your death. Not to mention they introduce killer fans, booger goo, electric alpha heads, and poison gas! The journey to the top is not an easy one, especially with the checkpoints spread across like butter on toast. And when you get to the top, you have to fight what I consider the hardest boss in the game, and also my favorite in fact. Robomantis is a lot of fun to fight, but to first-timers, this guy is going to be a nightmare. Once again, if you don't know how to fight him and avoid him properly. He's a pretty deadly boss with mostly instant kill attacks, and juggling him is not easy to do. Possible, but not easy. The only thing I like in this level is the boss fight and the Genesis version of this music. The level design is okay, and if you can't make it through here, you're definitely an intruder that just got excluded from the rest of this game. Lame. Number 3. Rat Race. I think this level is probably on most people's top 3 when they're asked what levels they think are hard. This level involves racing 3 rats to the finish line to kick a bomb and then a boss fight at the end. The first 2 races most people can probably do with little problem, but the third race, oh boy, you better strap yourself in because this is one fast rat and you pretty much need to be perfect with how you race to beat him. Your thumbs are going to be in pain your first time through. One thing to note is that this race is actually harder on emulators than the actual console, which plays at a slightly faster speed, and that the rats cheat by falling through the floors at the top. The boss at the end isn't that hard to fight, you'll figure out how. I hated this level going through screaming my head off, but once you get good at it and know how to race the third rat, it's actually not that bad of a level. And if you're not able to beat the third rat, you can also do this exploit where you can kick the earlier rats off stage and can end the level immediately, skipping everything else, and that's how you rat out of the race. Number 2. The Revolution. If you hate Intruder Excluder, you're going to hate this level even more. Death pits, instant kill enemies, no health pickups, no one-ups, a lot more platforming with springs and disappearing platforms, and checkpoints farther than the moon. You're going to die. This is also the longest level in the game, and I say that because it took me the longest to beat. This level requires patience and precision and is somewhat slow, but not Carnav's Lair slow. Each floor has something you need to watch out for, like enemies, hazards, and making sure you land on platforms or fall to your doom, like in Intruder Excluder. I don't quite like this level, especially if you're playing with 2 players, because if one of you screw up, both of you have to go back to a checkpoint. Although there is the Hungry Man 2 for 1 glitch D. Tyson from ANC Games and I accidentally discovered that apparently no one in the Battletoads community found out except us. Except when I found out that the Mexican runner found out before us. But anyways, this glitch made 2 players much easier. At the end you fight the Queen, who I'd say is the second hardest boss, but if you know how to ground her, she goes down like a dark bitch. By the way, this boss fight is actually its own level called the Armageddon, but I'm not counting that. The last thing I have to say is the music is pretty fitting for this level as you make your way to the top to face the Revolution. And the number 1 hardest level on my list in Battletoads is... Number 1. Clinger Winger. This level is what I consider the hardest level in the entire game. What you have to do is race this Hypno Orb by holding the direction on the D-pad that you're supposed to go, which is not obvious first time. Race the orb to the finish line and kill him. Sounds easy, right?
No. Why do you think I put this on my number 1 spot?
This is not as easy as it looks. Depending on how good your timing is, how fast you can react, or having any game lag, it can affect your turns. The Hypno Orb moves faster than you, and your only chance of outrunning it is by making really good turns, and if you mess up, it'll bring you closer to the Hypno Orb. Also, this level has no checkpoint. One screw up and it's back to the beginning. I say this is the hardest level mainly because unlike the other levels where there are definite tips and strategy, this level has next to none. You either do it or you can't. But I believe you guys can do it. I have faith. Because if I can do it, you can do it. Adding on to the fact that this level comes immediately after the rat race where your thumb is probably pretty sore from running and turning if that's what happened, this level just makes it worse. And if you want to make it even worse, if you play this on emulators, it's slightly faster than on the actual console, and the frame rate can mess up your turns. It's not unbeatable on emulators, but on the console it's much more consistent without lag. Speaking of lag, you can't play 2 players on this level on the NTSC North American version. Why? Because there's a glitch that prevents player 2 from moving, forcing them to die. Now you might think that this game is sloppy like that, and it is, but it's also a blessing in disguise. See, doing this with 2 players is also really hard. After surviving that, the boss fight is really easy to beat, just like Big Blag, so nothing special about Hypno Orb here. Now, I absolutely hated this level during my early attempts at this game, but I actually grew to like it once I got good at it, and it's actually pretty fun to speed kill the boss whenever I can do it. But yeah, I actually like this level.
So that's my list of what I think are the hardest Battletoad levels in the game. I hope you enjoyed it. As a game, I think Battletoads is a pretty good game, with lots of variety and different challenges to keep it engaging, and with the satisfaction of beating the game, it's a worthwhile game to play. Although it's not perfect, with some design flaws and glitches, but regardless, why not list off the levels that you think are the hardest? This is Wizwar100, you're the viewers and I'm the reviewer, so stay tuned for more! We're gonna go take a look at the Sega Genesis that I got when I was in America. I'm watching you, game. So, what was in there was the Game Boy player with the disc.
Why does this iPhone suck?